before we get going too much with concepts, let's look at the syllabus, because I want to show you the very few basic things I would like you to look at. So if you look at the syllabus, what I would do is I would, and you spend 2 minutes, look at one, what are the grades? I think that would be the first thing I would do. So the grades is the quiz as the big chunk, and the two presentations. There's one small presentation, which is just a subject presentation, which is meant to be fun and just to make you present and think outside of the box. Why is it important to think outside of the box? Because you're a consultant, and that's essentially what's asked from you. It is asked from you to have an opinion, but because you are not the most famous person or most famous consultant in the world, it's asked to be for you to have an opinion, and being an expert is give us the justification of your opinion. Just having an opinion is not enough. So the justification is very, very important. And I talked about this on last Tuesday, where in fact there's a stereotype and you want to sort of give the stereotype that gives the client the most confidence in you. So the best stereotype is to look professional and use professional terms and be clear and have yourself some confidence. So it's a confidence that is so high that there's a little bit of a small level of arrogance, because you just think you know what you're doing because you've done the research. So your level of confidence is as good as your level of research, essentially. Next, obviously it's working on the presentation. So that's essentially 75% of the grades. So you spend 1 minute on this. It's not super complicated. Then the next thing is you want to be familiar with what's going on. So we have 3 lectures, and then that's what I was talking about. This June 14, you will be meeting at 9 to 10:30 in order to do the first quiz, and then by group order. So this is my little training. Is these are the time that you meet. So what happens is the group 1, they need to come as soon as possible. My experience, having done this thousands of times, what the students do is they come at 10, the first group, and they're not ready. I ask, who's managing the sharing the screen, and then they haven't discussed that. Oh, Bob, do you have the paper? Oh no, Jennifer, do you have it? Oh, who has it? I don't have it with me. Okay, let's see. And then here 7 minutes go by, and out of the 30, that's only 23 minutes that we can talk. So that's also being professional, is that you take it seriously. And so at 10, you come and you just say, hey, I'm the one presenting, and I give you the co-sharing of Zoom. And the minute you get it, then you can start sharing, and you know who's doing what, and you have some kind of idea. So this is not as square and perfect at the beginning, but you want to start as square and perfect as you can, but it gets very square and perfect as we go. And now what happens with the second group? The second group really pay attention to the time, and at 10:30, not 29, not 31, at 10:30, they just jump inside the Zoom, and then we see they're coming, and then we just say bye-bye to group 1, and group 2 comes, and group 2 with do the same thing. You say, I'm the one sharing, please make me co-author, and so then we go. And group 3, the same thing. The minute it's 11, they jump in. What they can do, what you should be doing, is the group 1, once we finish at 10:30, say, hey, officially the time is not over for this class. So that's the time that we've all allocated. Why don't we do a little recap and planning after we meet with the professor, even 30 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, whatever you want, but just for a little time, so we talk about what we discussed, who does what you understood, and all this. Just do a little recap. I mean, that's how you do it in the professional real world. Here again, there's a huge difference between the people that understand the opportunity this is versus the people that don't. Unfortunately, you may notice in your team that everybody gets it, but eventually you want to try to make sure who gets it, who doesn't get it, and then see if you can explain these people that are not getting it, why they're not getting it, and re-explain it to them. Eventually, everybody should be on the same page, and everybody should be excited to get this done. It's really fast. It's important for you, and we are doing it for your future resume and for you to get a jump board out of and learn something that you can use it very fast. Like I said, it's very common. People use it and they get very successful. So same thing for group 2, there will still be some time because this ends at 11. You could still meet after. Same thing for group 3. There's still some time you can meet after. Group, oh, sorry, I made 2 times group 3, so to ignore that, that should be group 4. Group 4, you could say, oh, we don't have time after, so why don't you meet before and then jump in at 11:30. So be proactive, don't be passive, be active and proactive by using the time. You know, you may be very busy the rest of the week. I can imagine that's very possible, but you want to use this time there in order to make progress and brainstorming, talking about everything, saying something that you saw. Maybe you spend a long time looking at everybody's A2 milk. Maybe you spend a long time looking at what people do with protein, and you want to have discussions with your team members. So I give you a suggestion that there could be 2 people doing the protein, some kind of protein variation. I think there could be a group that's really focusing on building this culture, this corporate image. And then the 4th, and this is only me because I have my own bias, you know, you have your biases, I have my own biases. I think there could be one group that really say, hey, could we make a milk that's really for the rich people? I don't know if you know this, but people that were rich before the pandemic got 2 or 3 or 5 times richer. So the rich people became much richer in the world. The middle class became poorer, and the poor people became absolute poor. So if you're middle class and lower, you became poorer. If you're upper and very like extreme wealth, then you become, it's like untouchable. And so those people are looking for like expensive milk. In fact, there's a company that you all know called Uber. And so now Uber has a service which is called Uber Lux. And Uber Lux is just Uber doing what A2 Milk could do, is say, there's rich people, so why don't make Uber for the rich people? So there's Uber Lux, which is sort of a concierge. And obviously you can imagine that it's not everywhere, but it's where it means something. So are they in Monaco? Of course. Maybe they started in Monaco. So there's places where you want to do it. Maybe that also changes the map of where do they want to sell this very, very expensive product. So then you say, but would it be the same brand and all that? Okay, so that's the discussion that we need to have. So I see 4 big directions, which I call high level. I am not looking for these or only for these. Why do I do that? Is because I want to make sure that you have something to work with, and I don't want you to be left in the dark. And just to make sure that you have a plan B that I can offer you. And then you'll see the next 2 classes after this one that we just talked about. It's the one where there will be group presentation. So group 3 and group 4. And then we will have, again, some short little meetings. And we just the 2 groups that didn't present. Well, short, not so short, because we'll have an hour actually. So we'll be able to clean a lot of things. During the time that I meet with this group, here's the same thing, is it would make sense that you also, meaning group 3 and 4, are actually meeting in order to be discussing and making some progress as well and sharing. You don't want to be working just when this is the class time. Obviously, you want to be doing things before and all that. So that's what is important, that you have people that have true, honest leadership and are taking care of the group. I say honest leadership because there's some people, it happens sometimes, they have true leadership, but it's to make the other people work. And so therefore, they are more like users. So you want someone who's a true leader, which means that they show and they show that they don't mind working a lot. And this is to create the momentum for the rest of the group. And then they create a standard of work ethic that is so good that everybody else is like, okay, I got to step up. Do these people exist? Yeah, they exist. There's a lot. I find a lot of them at CSUN. And not everybody is that way, and that's just the way it is outside of the university as well. And so it's your opportunity to be a leader. You can be a leader in anything and anywhere as long as you decide that's what you want to do. And then the following week is we reverse it. It's pretty simple. And then after this, Thursday the 23rd, I guess, Avedis, you have a question?
Yeah, Professor, I'm a little bit confused on the on the subject presentations. Is it like a video we have to watch
Yes.
and
So
make a presentation on?
Yeah, exactly. So you watch the video and then you make a presentation.
Of just like summarizing the video?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But here's my little trick. Thank you for asking the question, because now I can answer it. I've done this many times, and you have no idea the number of students, like a lot of students. After 2 video, they come and they say, "Hey, professor, I know why you gave us those videos to do. You gave us those videos to do because you wanted to send us sort of a subliminal message." And there's actually several subliminal messages. One is, we're supposed to be consultants, and we're going to be tested and evaluated as consultants, not through the process, but at the end on the 12th of July. And to be a good consultant is you have to be someone that think out of the box. So you gave us a subject that in some way is very controversial. And you want us to look at it from an honest mind, which is that we're not going to take a side. We're actually going to take the side of the pros and the cons. So that's very interesting. So for example, I did one in my last class in spring, not the class that the students are in this class took, but another class, where I asked the students to do to watch a video on Tesla and then make a presentation. So there was 7 people making this presentation, and I asked at the end of the presentation, how many of the 7 people wanted to buy a Tesla before working on this presentation? So say before working on this presentation, there were 6 people that wanted to buy a Tesla. It was sort of a thing that they thought it would be really cool, and 1 that didn't know. And it's sort of the average, 5. Maybe sometimes there's 1 that doesn't like it, but most people say, oh, why not? And at the end of the presentation of the 7, I asked how many would want a Tesla, and they all were certain they didn't want one. So that was what was very interesting, is the fact that you may have an opinion on something because you only know the concoction, the cocktail that has been prepared by a bunch of consultants, and that have been prepared as a little kit, a little package that they ship to people's brain. And that's usually what people's opinion is fast food of information. It's a marketing fast food of brainwashing. And oftentimes that's how people think, is they think of it based on that. But when you actually take a subject and you know that you're going to have to present it in a class, and the professor tells you that you got to do pros and cons and think outside of the box, and eventually look at it from the perspective of now having looked at a lot of information in order to understand the whole subjects, maybe not A to Z, but B to X, almost everything. Your opinion is very different, and that's the world that we live in. Your opinion at the end of this project on A2 milk may actually be better than the opinion of the people that run the business. Why? Because you're from outside. Therefore, you had much more objective, to some extent, objective view, because we don't know exactly what they can do and not do and all of this. We don't have their blinders, but we have somewhat of an objective view because we have no limits. And this no limits sometimes, and maybe oftentimes, I should say, not sometimes, oftentimes is what gives these companies the potential to become more than what they think they can be. Because we're dreaming for them. We're thinking in a very fantastic way, in an ultimate way. And so, for example, what I was just saying is making a luxury milk. It's very possible that A2 Milk has never thought of that. It's possible that they don't think much about it. It's also possible that there's no market for it. You always have to give the benefit of the doubt. But I would be surprised there's no market for luxury milk when there is a market for luxury everything. So how could there be a market for luxury everything and not milk? And that's my point. It may be one of the last territory that is untouched, and that's what I like. And that's what disruption is about, is finding a space that is untouched. And that's what happened with the honey that we did last fall, is we went into a territory that was untouched for thousands of years. And we got more and more confident, because as we came up with the idea and unfolded the idea, we saw some companies actually doing it about the same time, and we could see their revenue that was, multiplied by 5 months to months. So that gave us a lot of confidence. Here, it's very likely, a 99.9% chance that we were not going to see anyone doing that with the milk that will give us confidence. So because it's too short, and I may be wrong, maybe someone started 3 months ago and there will be already data that you can see. But what's important is to think about those spaces that are yet to be discovered. And that's what makes you someone who is disruptive, by discovering new spaces or shifting a bunch of things to sort of change the perception on something that two old things together make it new as well, and you make it better than the new thing. Okay. Yes, Priscilla.
Yes, Professor. I had a question on the topic of this luxury milk.
Yes.
Because I've been looking at these databases, and it's really hard to find like quantifiable and qualitative data.
Yes, very hard.
So on the topic of luxury milk, if we think, man, this is really promising, this could do really well, but what if we don't have the data to back up that, hey, this is
yes, exactly. Okay, so that's very good. Thank you for this question, because that's where I expect everybody to be. This is exactly where I expect everybody. I'm hoping a few people from last semester or other people could answer to your question. Anyone could answer to Priscilla's question?
Professor, I think there's only one good solution I come up with, maybe based it on similar data from a different industry, from a different market.
So that's very true. And thank you for this answer. That's a very good answer. And that's what I talked on Tuesday. I call them case study. And I said, the example again about the Valley Hive, where they talked about the vape used the flavor, it worked. The water used the flavor, it worked. The whiskey used the flavor, it worked, right? I mean, I saw with my eyes when the whiskey people did that. Personally, I make cognac, and I'm a very purist in the type of cognac that I make. It has to be the best cognac, and it's very authentic. And I make huge innovation. I won top 50 innovators in 2014, I think, or whatever, in the spirit industry in the world. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and I came up with a lot of innovation and got recognized for that. But anyway, when the whiskey people did the innovation of flavoring it, being a traditional person, I thought it was terrible. I thought it was a disgrace. I thought it was crazy. If this was within a consulting thing that I was doing, I would think, I don't want to be part of that. But what's important is not the fact that we make product for ourselves, is we make it for a specific customer. The company that did that has several brands, and some brands is very high quality and some brands is not high quality. So they did it with their lower quality. So that's different. And therefore they did it for the people that bought low quality whiskey. And they figured, if you give low quality whiskey to someone that look for low quality whiskey, they drink that much. If you flavor it, you multiply how much they're going to drink. Then I hear that, then that's a good justification. Then I would say, go for it. So that case study, you take it and then you use it to explain how would that happen with honey. The same. How much honey do you eat? This much. How much more honey would you eat if it had this flavor? This much more. So case study is very important, but that's the second thing that I just told right now is you do primary qualitative research. So here again, and last Tuesday, I said, I'm going to say it 3 times. I don't know if you remember. If you look at the video, it's in the video. I say, I'm going to tell you 3 times, do not do quantitative survey. Do not do quantitative survey. Do not do quantitative survey. So today, so that's what I did on Tuesday. And then I said, but you should be doing primary qualitative research. So now I'm still going to say it 3 times. You should do primary qualitative research. You should do primary qualitative research. You should do primary qualitative research. So that's the answer to Priscilla. And that's the answer to the 25 people. There's one missing. 25 people that are here, which is that you should be doing qualitative research. So I talked about this on Tuesday, but let me talk about it again. But before this, give me 20 seconds just to finish that. So go look at these and you will see there's nothing that is rocket science. The only thing that is still not rocket science is there's some Zoom where you will be not meeting with me, but here's what I want you to do is I'm using another form of teaching and for you to practice is I want you within the time, from the 9 to 12, at least that time, you could do it before, you do it whenever you want. I don't have to know. But I want you to create, like this is being recorded. So you're going to do the presentation and you're going to pick whatever you want in your presentation and say, good morning, professor. We are working on the presentation right now. We're going to flip the screen. John, flip the screen. We want to talk just about pricing. So we want to take 5 minutes talking about pricing because we're not too sure what we need to do. So only pricing, just 5 slides on pricing. We want to show you this. And then you record this, you save it, and then you go to WeTransfer.com. So to use WeTransfer.com, you need 1 finger, 1 eye. It's like 2 clicks, 3 clicks. And it's free. You don't have to pay anything. Don't get into they have a system to pay, but it's to send, movies, like 2 megabytes, 2 gigabytes or whatever. So save this. And then, if it's only 5 minutes, it should not be huge. And if it's huge, you can always save it to a lower format. And then WeTransfer, you send it to me. Then I will review it. And then I will give you feedback on when we meet the next time. And then when you do the next Zoom, you just do the same thing, is you pick a specific section because that way, what you will see is eventually there's parts where you're going to be very good. So we don't need to see them many times again. And I will tell you, very good, move on, move on, move on. But there's parts where you're going to have problems. So we should be sort of moving on and progressing to the weakest part of your presentation and your argument. And so that's, I've used it in the past. And the students, some loved it because they were good at filming and saving a video and emailing it, and it was no big deal. And some people had a hard time. And the reality is the people that had a hard time was when we used to be in the class because they were filming themselves and they had to meet and all this was complicated. Here with Zoom, it could not be simpler to do this. And that's it. Then it's one last meeting all together before the week where you will actually be presenting. Okay, so I'm finished with this. Before I move on to answer the question of primary qualitative, any question on the syllabus? No. Okay, so I have to go back to what we discussed before. So we discussed about research. And I was telling you, and that was the argument I was trying to make, is that you need to embrace research to a point that it becomes a game for you, like you're playing some, I don't know, Monopoly or whatever video game. And I don't want you to do quantitative. So what's in red there, I just want you to know that there is either the black or the red, the qualitative or the quantitative, that you do as primary research. Primary research is research yourself research. So I want you to do qualitative. So that was Priscilla's question. So she says, and that's very, 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 very likely, that if you pick the subject of saying, oh, we're going to make a very high-end, maybe a luxury milk for A2, for super wealthy people. But how do we find data? I mean, we actually found nothing, and we found that maybe we could get something, but it would cost us $5,000 at least. Don't do that. So you do qualitative research, which is written right there. Individual interviews. So, what's the problem with that? Well, the one little problem with that is you will have to figure a way to be able to talk to some people who make, more than $200,000, more than $250,000 a year. That's what you would want to try to find. So you find two things: either people that are wealthy. How many do we need to find? Well, I would say it would be great to find a dozen of these people that you could eventually talk to. How can we do that? Well, you have 6, 7 people in your group. If everybody finds one, that's already 6 or 7. Someone wealthy. The other thing is you could do is you could also say, well, it's not just wealthy people that consume wealthy things. In fact, there's a company called Swatch. It's the second largest watch company. It used to be the first. And I told you, I can tell you why they are not the first. It's because we did a project where they were at the center of our attention, and we told them that they should go into smartwatch, and they didn't do it. And so it's Apple that became the number one. But anyway, they're still very, very big, and they have multiple brands. And one included is called Omega. Omega, do you know what Omega did in the past few weeks? Anyone knows? So nobody knows what Omega did in the past few weeks. In the past few weeks, Omega created I forgot the name of that Omega, but it's not Seamaster. It's a model of Omega. It's the one that was used by Neil Armstrong, the team that went to the moon. So it's a watch that is very revered because it has this association with the having been to the moon. The watch that went to the moon and so forth. So I forgot the name of that model of Omega. However,
the Speedmaster.
Speedmaster, I think so. And so the Speedmaster, they remade an edition of the Speedmaster, but produced by Swatch. So it's a Swatch limited edition version of Speedmaster by Omega. It's the same company. They should have done this a long time ago, right? To me, that makes so much sense. And so therefore, how much is the Omega Speedmaster? $5,000, $6,000. That's expensive. It's not ultra rich expensive, because ultra rich expensive watches are over $40,000, $50,000. That's the ultra rich watch. I'm not talking about the most crazy, because the crazy watch are in the $500,000 watch, and there's more expensive than that. But what's considered the ultra rich watch are over $40,000, $50,000. So a $6,000 watch, it's a very, very, very expensive watch. But they made the Swatch Speedmaster by Omega. You know how much they're selling that? They're selling them less than $300. Less than $300? Yes. When they sold them, you know what happened a few weeks ago? People did worse than the Apple iPhone 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. People went to sleep in front of the store, the Swatch store, 2 or 3 days before the watch was released to be the first in line. So they had line like 3 times of football fields, worse than Apple, in front of those Omega Swatch stores in order to buy that limited edition Swatch Omega. Gone. And then you're asking me, is this a smartwatch? No. Is this an old school watch? Yes. This was worse than electronics. Wow, how amazing. That's worse than people watching Top Gun on lines and so forth. That's amazing. And so they sold out all of those watches for $300. And I'm guessing now, if you want to buy one, they're even more expensive because there's no more. And so that's what has happened is right now, there's a lot of people that consume luxury that are not supposed to be the luxury wealthy people. They are just looking for one thing with one brand, one emotion, one little luxury that they can afford. Ooh, that's interesting. I know where you're heading. You're heading that maybe milk, maybe something that they sort of splurge, I guess the word is, it's like, now and then I'm going to get some real good milk because that's my little pleasure. So people that would buy expensive things, there's a very, very wealthy people, and the people that cannot afford it, but now and then they buy a luxury. So that's what happens. And you can find those people as well. Maybe you don't know too many millionaires, but maybe you know a lot of people that once a year or twice a year, they buy a little Vuitton purse or something, or Dior perfume or whatever, okay? So these are the people you're going to get the information. The other thing you could say is, what about talking to people that are real foodie? They're really picky about what they buy. And, they buy all of these expensive, they go to Whole Foods, to Gilson's. Gilson's is another good place where you could imagine at Gilson's that they would sell this fancy milk, Bristol Farms, So all the things I'm telling you right now, I'm already starting to do the project for you, but it's impossible to say that there's no data in any subject. How so? Because you can always find it yourself. How so? Doing survey, yes, but you don't have time for survey. So what do? Interviews as individual, interviews as a group. Wow, so does that mean that we probably should be creating some prototypes? Yeah, I would create prototypes. Is it okay if we start with visual prototypes, just using Photoshop, or because I'm not good at Illustrator, but I can do Photoshop, or my friend is willing to help me and do Photoshop, or I always love to be doing designs and I'm going to have fun doing this. I don't know. It's important to do prototypes because you want, like I show you on Tuesday, is these people did the video and they put the music with the video to show the client what it would look like. So you don't want to say, you could do luxury milk, period. Is you need to say who they are, what information you found, what surprise you had, and here are the different prototypes that were created, and here are the different results based on the prototypes and so forth. Could the brand be renamed a different way? A2 Lux, I don't know what it could be, but it could be. I would, so Priscilla, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, fantastic. So don't be, nothing in business, there's nothing that should stop you. I don't have time. That's a bad excuse. I don't have the money. That's a bad excuse. I don't have the data. That's a bad excuse. The only thing that can stop you, to be honest, very much, is your health. That's the only thing that can stop you, is you just don't have the health to take care of growing a business. That's the only thing. If you're healthy, if you're standard intelligent, you can run a very good business, but nothing else can stop you beside health, I think. So you sort of see my perspective, and therefore that's why I say that anything can be done, but you need to make the argument. And to make this argument, just to summarize, is like Jack Stover just said, is you need to find the case study and make an analogy between something that has already happened, which may be in a different industry. That's number one. And number two is you get the data yourself by asking the people and creating some situation. So what should we do to do well in this class? You know, is, well, I don't know, just to make it super simple, like 8 years old simple, is I would open Wikipedia and I would put in Wikipedia qualitative research. And I would spend 5 minutes reading that because it's going to take you 5 minutes. Then I would say, okay, I learned the basic of the basic that 8 years old can learn just from Wikipedia. Maybe I can go beyond that. And then I would take some of the things that's written in Wikipedia, you know, like a projective technique. They talk about projective technique. Oh, that's interesting. I want to learn more than what's in Wikipedia. Then I'll take projective technique, which is one of the qualitative research technique, and I'll put it separately in Google, is qualitative research and projective technique. And then I would look for two link, and I would read 2 links that look like they know what they're talking about. After you spend 5 minutes on Wikipedia and then 5 minutes on those 3 links, you will be down to 15 plus 5 plus moving around another 10, 20. So that's 30 minutes. In 30 minutes of this, you already know about projective techniques. And then you say, gee, I wonder if we could use that. Maybe that could be an interesting way because we've done X, Y, and Z, and that will work. And you'll discuss this with your team. And then you'll start planning to do that. And then you'll collect the information using your projective technique. And you may be finding something, or you may find nothing. And that's why you need to be very resourceful, is because you need to find what's the best technique to find what you want. And there's an element of luck, maybe at the beginning, if you find the right one, but there's an element of trial and error. So you try and you come back on all of this, okay? Do you have any other questions? So you may have questions right now, or you may be a little confused, and you may not want to ask your questions because you may not even know how to ask them. That's a normal feeling if that's how you feel. Hopefully it's not like you in your mind, you say, I understood nothing, zero. Hopefully you understood something. And I would say you will understand what this is all about as you practice it. You're not being a virtual consultant, you're the real thing. So you're gonna have to do it. And by practicing it, it's gonna become more clear. So now I want to talk about something that is directly related to what we're just talking about, is the consumers. Because at the end of the day, your disruptions, your great ideas, which are going to be high level first and then explain through the details, will be most likely coming from the consumers. Why? What's the marketing environment made of? The micro and the macro. Each one has their own forces. Of all of these forces, which one do you think is the most important? Which one has the most impact, you would think, over the course of a business to be successful? Which one of these factors has the greatest impact? So I'll give you 2 tips. One, the micro environment has most of the time more impact than the macro. 2, the answer is obvious.
Customers?
Customers, exactly, that's correct. Thank you. Why do you think the customers have the greatest impact?
Because whether or not they like the product is the entire goal. Like our goal is to give them a product that they like, and if they choose that they don't, then we don't have a business.
Exactly. We don't have a business if we don't have a customer. You don't have a business because you have a warehouse, because you have employees, you have something to sell, you've got money in the bank. You have a business because you have customers. That sounds so obvious, but you should see the number of times where I see that people don't put it as a primary. I would say more than 50% of the time, I can see, being a consultant, looking at the business, that that's not their priority. Number 2, once you understand that the customer is key, the customer is the boss. If you have a customer, you have a business. What's the second thing you think is the most important once you understand that? I'm not saying the second factor, I'm saying the second thing. You know the most important thing is the customer. Now you have a customer. What do you think is the most important? And don't feel bad. Just, don't feel like you have to have always the correct answer. It's more for me to engage you. So what do you think is the second most important thing?
Your suppliers?
Well, no, it was not one of the factors. It still has to do with the customer. So the first thing is I have a customer. The second thing is, what would be the next question you asked? It's related to the customer again.
The public?
No, the second thing is, who is my customer? It's like most businesses, that I do, the small business, it's typical of the small business is, how much have you sold last year at this month last year? Oh, last year, this month, we are doing so much better. We sold 5,000 products. We had 5,000 customers. This year, at the same time, we have 2,000 products sold, 2,000 customers. So we lost 65%. It's like, whoa. Then the next question, who is your customer? And to this question, 95% of the smaller businesses tell you, oh, my customer, hey, it's nobody, it's everybody. People that like candy. I sell candy, people that like candy. Oh, it can't be. So having a customer, you're in business. The minute you're in business is you need to know who is your customer. Who it is. Not everybody is your customer. There's a company that started next to the university, which is called Juicy Couture. So Juicy Couture, that was 20 years ago. This was a family in the San Fernando Valley that was just designing clothes. And then they created this brand, Juicy Couture. And then in a matter of a few weeks, they became multi-millionaire and became very successful. And they created a trend. You know what's the trend?
Those, are you talking about a specific product they made?
Yes.
Those like velvet tracksuits?
Yes, velvet tracksuits. It's like women wearing tracksuits. Before Juicy Couture, there was not too many women wearing tracksuits. After Juicy Couture, there's so many brands that make tracksuits that now, I mean, it's almost probably the most common. Like right now, I'm sure some of the ladies are wearing a tracksuit. It became so common. So what's interesting is they said we have a customer, but then they said we know our customer. 1, it's a woman. 2, it's a woman that does this. 3, it's a woman that is this age. 5 is a woman that lives in this area. So that's what's very important, is that you just don't want to say, I have a customer. I don't know who's my customer, but it works. They're buying. But who are they? Well, I don't know. It doesn't matter. They're buying. You don't want to know the least as possible on your customers. In fact, you want to know the most as possible. So that's a cue for you to know that as a consultant, you're going to have to know as much as possible on the customer. When Megan Dish last Tuesday, the Tuesday before, said, when we ask people how much did they know about milk, cow milk, plant milk, and we found a group that says, we know a lot. We actually are very knowledgeable. We are like experts. And we asked them the question, how much do you read? And they said, we are avid reader. I remember she said that word. We are avid reader. And she made a face when she used the word avid, because they were all like, oh yeah, I know my stuff. And then they went to them and they say, how much protein there is in almond milk? She asked this to those expert avid reader, and they knew all about milk, and asked them how much protein there was in milk, in almond milk. And remember what she said? What did she say? Do you remember?
Isn't there like 2 grams or something?
Yeah, I mean, 2 grams, if you're lucky, it's like 1 gram or less. 2 grams is, so sometimes there's more than that because they reinforce it, because we see this. I mean, she says there's no protein. it's not true that there's no protein, but there's so little that it's like saying there's none. It's more correct than saying that there is some. And so those avid readers that are experts and know everything, in fact, they thought they did. But then she added, most of the time, those avid readers that know it all, when you actually look at how much did they read about the product, you find that they read at best 2 things on the bottom. So they read, but two things. They don't read the whole thing. They don't really know what they're talking about. And that's why I'm making you do those presentations on subjects that I know that you may have an opinion, but you don't really know what you're talking about. By preparing and presenting them, at the end, you will know what you're talking about. And your opinion will be an opinion of someone that knows, not someone that says they know or they are avid reader and they didn't read that much. To prepare this presentation, you cannot fake it, make it. You're gonna have to watch the video and you're gonna have to pay attention. By doing that, you will be knowledgeable consumers. How many knowledgeable consumers there is out there? Not many. People may think they are, but they are not. Wow, so Professor, you're right, or you're sort of very insulting to people's intelligence because you're just saying that, or at least their perception of their knowledge, because you're saying most people don't know. Most people don't know. Most people work from sound bites when it comes to consumption. Marketing is what creates the soundbite. The business need to be aware of that and know who are their customers and what sound bites do they want to give it to them in order for them to make decisions. So it's called the 3 stages: the input, the process, and the output. The input is what they receive. So they receive information about the product, the promotion, the price, the where it's distributed, who buys it. They receive all kinds of information, the culture, subculture, and all of this different thing. And then the process is how people actually decide, how they make their mind. And so at that time, it's depending on the importance, depending who they are. You know, sometimes at lunch time, I just say, you know what, I'm going to eat and put the news on. So I put the news, I put the major channels. And then I put the major channel news. And then I realized that something is not right, because all the commercials are about things that are really for old people. Very old. Old people, there's a lot of medicine. If your heart does this, you take that. If you have pain, you take that. If you feel weak, you take that. If you have low energy, you take that. If you're depressed, you take that. It's like commercial after commercial of medicine that have like more side effects, it looks like, because they give you the list of side effects than benefits that you get from the product. And you have to be in very bad shape. So it's like either you're in very bad shape, and that's why you're watching TV, and that's why they're advertising this, or you have to be old and not doing good. And every time I go, that's funny, because now that means that's the only people that watch the news, because that's the only message that they have. Are these messages bad? They're not bad, because they are for the people that watch the news during those times. And I'm not supposed to be there watching news, right? And so it's the same. Is when you make a product, it's not meant to please everyone. It's only meant to please who you have planned to please. So that's the key of the process. And that's why whatever protein thing you're going to create, whatever campaign plan you're going to have, luxury milk or whatever, it's going to have to be very clear of who this is for and who it's not for. And so as a consultant, your role is to find those great ideas, and your role is to identify very precisely who it is for and what's the plan in order to optimize the business to reach these people and satisfy these people. Okay, so you have to optimize. So how do you divide people? So without going to, because that could be a very long process to explain all of this, but should be a recap for everyone. But you divide people. So how do you explain the differences between people? by culture, social, personal, psychological. And how do you divide people? By the same way. So if you think about consumer behavior, understanding it, it's for the sake of understanding the different facets that there is and processes that there is for consumers to think. But at the same time, it's to help you divide them. So which one of these factors, cultural, social, personal, or psychological, do you think has the greatest impact on consumers?
Psychological.
Oh yeah, you said psychological. So people think psychological is the most important most of the time, when in fact it could be the least important. So most of the time, people think that what I do is based on processing information, looking at the pluses, the minuses, looking at what I'm gonna gain, lose, looking at what I know, my experiences, based on my personality and all of this. That's what we think. But could there be something else? Deep down, how people make decisions, deep down. Let's say you never took a consumer behavior class, you never heard about this. You're just a normal human being and you're just thinking with your head right now. What could be the main reason that drive people to make decisions?
I would say personal experience.
Personal experience. So yeah, so personal experience is yeah, but there's a lot of things that we buy is new.
Is it like social conditioning?
Special conditioning.
Social conditioning.
Oh, social conditioning.
The
Yes,
people
yes.
like you live around.
Yeah, so these are two good answers. The experience is important, but it's still something that you control. The reality is most of what we do and the decision we make are based on coding that we have in our brain that we don't control very much. We would like to think that we control things, but the reality is the biggest impact is our culture. So social conditioning, you could say that it's the fact that our culture has a set of rules and regulations and codes and rituals, behaviors and values that we have received within our environment. So if you know, when before I lived in Southern California, I lived outside, not even in the US. So I came to Southern California. And for example, my exposure to South American food, Mexican food, was very limited. And therefore, I didn't know much about it. I remember I went to a restaurant in Glasgow a very long time ago, and maybe some other places. But to me, eating Mexican was extremely exotic. Like wow, it's a real special night. It's very remarkable. Now, living in Southern California, it's nothing special. It's sort of the most common food that you can find. Maybe not the most common, because the most common would be like burgers, fast food burgers, but then would be Mexican. So I got exposed to Mexican. So I can see why people like Mexican food here more than the other places where I live, because it's part of the culture. If you ask them if they like Mexican food more than Moroccan food, they will tell you that they like Mexican food more than Moroccan food. But do they know Moroccan food? They don't. So a lot of the things that we do is based on our culture. And so if we take an example of religion, is if you ask someone who is Protestant, what's the best religion? What is he going to say? What's she going to say? Protestant. If you ask someone who's Hindu, what's the best religion? They're going to say Hinduism. If you ask someone who is Jewish or Catholic or Muslim, it's the same thing. So people say the best religion is their religion, yet oftentimes they don't know any other religion. Or if they know, it's again based on a set of opinions which has been collected within the environment of their own religion. So therefore, there's always negative connotation about the other religions, which reinforce the fact that their religion is the best. When I lived in France, the best food was French. When I lived in England, there was things I really like in England. So I start thinking, well, there's some good things in France and some good things in England. Then I lived in Africa, the same perception, lived in Spain, the same perception. And it kept on growing until I lived in so many different places that I see that there's plus and minuses everywhere. And it's harder for me to select one because my vision of all becomes more complicated. And it's the same thing is if you think about who is the best singer, it's harder for someone that's listening to thousands of different singers to tell you who is the best singer than it's someone listen to the one and only singer. They have no other alternative. So culture as a simple rule is the one that's the biggest impact on how we make decisions. But now I will tell you another one, and I think it's very important that I discuss it. It's not in the textbook. It will be on Google if you spend the time searching it. It's very much my experience, but I would say the biggest explanation on why people do things, the why is the hardest one to answer. It has to do with people's emotion that may be directly connected to culture, emotion that may be very directed towards their education, their role, and their family, and their reference group. Emotions to me are, in most cases, the number one reason why we do things. People, most of the time, will not recognize the emotion is what's driving them to make decisions. But if you spend time to analyze their decisions and you go deep, you will find that emotions, the feelings, gut feelings, and how they feel and what they see, what they perceive is the number one thing that they do. And so obviously that sounds a little crazy. In a way, it sounds even Freudian, very much what Freud would agree and what Freud has contributed to our society in terms of psychosocial analysis. But it's very true, is our emotions are a big factor. So now when it comes to milk, when it comes to milk, I can imagine that there is a huge psychosocial Freudian thing going on with milk. The most impactful, I would say, the number one most impactful marketer, if you search it, I don't even know it mentioned it that way, but it's because I've studied it for many years, and I'm pretty sure I'm correct. One of the most impactful marketer in the world is called Bernays, Bernays, Edward Bernays. Okay. Bernays, if you go on Wikipedia, you're going to find about him. And you're going to see probably in the first 3 lines that they're going to say that he's probably the most, one of the most impactful American personality of the past 100 years. And then you're going to go, how come one of the most impactful individual in the USA in the past 100 years, I've never heard of? That's crazy. Anyone heard of Bernays? All right. I'm not looking at Wikipedia right now, but I'm not surprised. That's what they say. It has influenced. Yes, Van, what did you see? I see you have a thing.
I heard about him in PR.
Oh, in PR. Okay, that's very true. You heard about him in PR because there's no doubt that he is the, well, he's supposed to be the, the Messiah, like the Jesus of PR. So that would make sense. He created something called propaganda, for example. He's the father of propaganda. And he lived around 100 years. He died in 93, I think, in the 90s anyway. And because of him, I think there's 5 American presidents that got elected, but he's not just doing the politics. And why I think about him right now is because he was involved as a consultant in so many different projects, from people smoking cigarettes. For example, he is responsible for making women smoke cigarettes. Because in the 30s and before, or before the 30s, most of the people smoking were men. It was not good for women to be smoking cigarettes. And so the cigarette company hired Bernice to ask Bernice on how to make women smoke cigarettes. And you can, I mean, he's done so many things, but that's just one of the 1,000 things that he did. And so he found a way of making women smoke cigarettes. What he said, women are fighting to be the equal of men. So what we're going to portray is the fact that if women want to be the equal of men, they need to smoke cigarettes. If they smoke cigarettes, that's one way for them to show that they are like the men. And he made all kinds of campaign showing that women that were smoking cigarettes were the equal of men. And that was one of the way of freeing yourself from being under the man, and to be equal, you had to, the more cigarettes you smoke, the more you were like a man. And so he used so many different things, including Hollywood, where he used more and more actresses in Hollywood that would be smoking. And they were usually the women that tried to be very manly, or the women that were sort of sex symbols and all of these different things, smoking cigarettes. After Bernice, obviously when Bernice said that that's what they needed to do, if that had been at the beginning of his career, they would have told him he's crazy, we're not going to do that, because he was already well in his career. He was already recognized as being very successful. They believed him. He did the same thing for the most famous soap in the world, Ivory soap. You can read about Ivory soap and how he made Ivory soap, still today, the #1 soap in the world. And that was Bernice. But I was thinking of what happened to the cake, to the pre-mixed food. So after World War II, women had a social role, which was to be home and to be cooking and taking care of the family. That kept on going in the 50s, and that was very much what was expected from women in the 50s. And in the 50s, the food industry decided to create a revolution, which was to create food that is already pre-made. And so they created this sort of food kit that you take and you will put together, and then you just warm it, and that would be called food. And so they made, the first thing, I think it was a cake mix. So you could make a cake just from mixing the whatever ingredients, and in a matter of minutes, you would have a cake and everybody would be happy. Was that successful at the beginning? It was not successful at the beginning. Why wasn't it successful at the beginning? It was not successful because women felt that they were sort of taking shortcuts. They felt that they were sort of cheating, lying, being dishonest to their family by making food in a way that this was not traditional, and it was artificial and sort of taking shortcuts. I mean, I'm not saying what's good and bad. I'm only telling you the story, okay? So don't hold it against me if I say anything that sounds sexist or whatever. That's not the point. The point is that you have to go back there and you go, wow, that's how the women were thinking, is like they were cheating their family because it was too easy to make. It would be too quick, too little efforts and all of this. Yes. So those first cake mix and pre-made products failed and failed and failed and failed and failed and failed, even though they were really the benefit of these people, because they saved money, saved time, saved everything. But it failed because it was emotionally wrong. So they called Bernice and they gave that project to Bernice, and Bernice started to talk about the fact that if the oven was like the stomach of a woman, and people have this emotional Freudian thing about the oven is a woman's stomach, and out of the oven comes birth, comes life. So then you go, wow, those Freudian people are really crazy and all this. But at the end, you have to take this seriously, because there is huge emotional components in how people think. So they went into that, they got it, the Freudian thing and all that. And then they start looking at what they could do in order to make it better. And then Bernice found out that if you actually, in the mix, in the ingredients, ask for the housewife to take an egg out of the fridge and crack the egg and add it to the mix, that was going to change everything, because they felt that they did something that was still natural, traditional, and somewhat a little bit more sophisticated than just mix the mix. And when obviously Bernie said that, everybody says, oh, are you sure? Could it be that simple? And that's what they did. And the sales went up. Like, they couldn't help it, to the point that today we live in the world that we live. And so that was the start of the fast food and premix and the food industry. When you think about all of these things that have happened and all that, and now you're looking at the project that has to do with milk, to me, that's a huge thing. And one thing that I find really amazing about A2 milk is the fact that it has such a high technological content. And when I look around me, there's lots of people that sometimes they buy things just because of the new technology. I remember when Apple actually launched the smartwatch. At that time, I was like thinking, why are people going to buy a watch? They don't need a watch. This thing does everything that your phone does. Why do you need to have a phone and a watch that does the same thing? It doesn't matter. There is an appeal for the new technological gadget. If it's high-tech, it's better. Does it have to be better? No, it has to be high-tech and therefore is better. So there are people out there that don't know about the fact that A2 milk, it's called A2 milk, but it could be called DNA milk. I mean, the amount of science, and that's also why the milk is expensive, the amount of technological processes that are required in order for this milk to be processed and created and stamped A2 milk is crazy. It's a lot of loops and processes that if you wanted to sell this product, you could say, oh, our cows are treated very humanly, to the point that they are happy cows. And these happy cows, the happier they are, the more they make A2 milk. In fact, our cows are so happy that it's 100% A2. Oh, this is like a very cute story, a very happy cow story. But then there's the other story, which is through hours of scientific research, we found the DNA of the cow that produces A2 milk. And from other research, we found that A2 milk, it could be a much more scientific discussion. And when I look at the story, those two stories, I see that the packaging right now looks like the high-tech packaging more than it looks like the happy cow, cute farm story. So it seems to me that A2 milk company needs to take a position. They are either the position of the human cow and all of this, and therefore the packaging does not work. The brand, the products are purchased, I was explaining, because of a large component of emotions. When looking at A2 milk, my perception is there could be two streams of emotion, that there could be more than two, but two that I can see. One is it's either the milk that was done the traditional way, the human way, and it's more of a message about the quality is from the fact that they are doing it in a human way, versus the other message could be emotionally that it's the high-tech milk And therefore, because it's the high-tech milk, it's better. More science, more technology, talks about DNA. And so that's also a stream of emotions that could be cultivated. Now, should something like the packaging, should it be changed? Well, does it apply to one or the other? And if it applies, how well does it apply? What about the whole corporate image? Is it an image more towards the technology, the science, or is it an image more towards the fact that it's the quality of the farming and the quality of the role of the farmers and their relationship with the cow? So two things to think about. These are the only questions that I have myself, only using my own perceptions. That's what I see. And that's where you would have the role of talking to some consumers and seeing their perceptions. So we see the consumers that know about the company versus the consumers that don't know and discover, that you help discover the company and see what they think about it. So for you to understand this, all of these are different characteristics that explains how people think, but at the same time, there are different characteristics in order to break people down in different groups. So it's useful for segmenting to know those characteristics. Another way to segment people is based on their needs. Why would they buy the product? So why do they buy A2 milk? They buy A2 milk because they want to get the calcium from the milk. They buy A2, so that's the number one, the lower level. They buy A2 milk because they want to get the protection from the A2 protein. That's number two. They buy A2 milk because of social needs. So this, maybe there is, maybe there's not, maybe there should be more. They buy the A2 milk because of ego needs. Maybe there is, maybe there should be none, or maybe there should be more. And obviously that would be where you will have the luxury A2 milk type. And then self-actualization is so self-actualization here would be them buying the milk because they're maybe cooking something with this milk and they're trying to make it better than they used to because they would want to get a milk that has more of the characteristics to enhance their own production. So that may be impressing someone else, but it may be for their own sake of them having the pleasure of using a product that they know is more authentic or something like this. So what I mean is that 1 and 2 are personal, 3 and 4 are interpersonal, and then 5 is also personal. So you have to see all of these needs and how do they connect to the person themselves versus how do they connect to the person with the other people of their environment. Then the J&D is the concept that which I explained at the very beginning last Tuesday, which is that people get used to things. You know, so there's an innovation. Eventually, the innovation becomes the norm, and then you have to think about the next innovation. If your next innovation is too small, it doesn't get noticed, and therefore it doesn't get people to want to upgrade to this new innovation. If it's too much innovation, they may be feeling that this is not for them, or this is for something later, or maybe it's too different that they are not ready to make the changes. You may see an innovation that doesn't work, and 20 years down the road, someone brings it back again, and it works. So the timing is very important, and the timing may be the fact that people are not ready, or the fact that when it was launched the first time, it was not launched by creating the momentum that the product needed at the beginning. So sometimes it's not just the fact that it's not the right era, it's also was not the right implementation, campaign launch. The Just Noticeable has different variations. The Just Noticeable may be the price, the Just Noticeable may be the flavor, the Just Noticeable may be the image, the Just Noticeable may be the shape. So all of these could be all of these different Just Noticeable, but all together makes it different enough that people want it. It could be just one of these that changes, you know, like the Earth cheese A2 milk, the main difference is the flavor. Obviously, they had to change the packaging, but people see the flavor. So this is a company that we did back maybe 6 years ago. It's called Weetabix. So anyone knows Weetabix here?
Yes, Professor.
How come you know, where do you eat? How do you know Weetabix? Where does it come from?
Eat it in oatmeal.
Or you put it in oatmeal?
Yes.
Oh, that's, I've never heard. Where did you eat it first? In America?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's the people in the US usually that I find that know about Weetabix are the people that found it overseas normally. And the reason is that this is the #1 brand in the UK, for example. So if you go in England or Scotland or United Kingdom, anywhere, Weetabix is the most common breakfast cereal. So one breakfast cereal that's very common in the UK is muesli. So that's a type of cereal. And so in America, people don't think too much about muesli. In Europe, it's more common. And in the UK, it's even more common. But the big brand that does the breakfast cereal that they have there, it's called Weetabix. And so it's sort of a little bread biscuit like this, which is made of whole grain. And then you put it inside the milk, and eventually it becomes your little breakfast cereal. For some reason, the British absolutely love it. And in America, it's struggling to sell very much. So we took this product because it was very strange. How could it be #1 in one country and #0 in another? It's a big contrast. And so what we found is this product was put together in a way that it doesn't work with the American culture. It's very interesting because the American culture is the one that talks about fitness. There's even a product called fitness cereal, right? Fitness and whole grain and all of this, which is Weetabix since day one. That's how they've been. However, they don't relate to it. And there's many reasons that the students found why it was not related. The Americans don't relate to it. One was the packaging, and two was the fact that it comes as those little biscuits or bread or bunch or whatever. So that there's nothing like this in America, and so they don't know how to eat it. And everything about the communication about Weetabix is not good. Could Weetabix be a good benchmark to talk about A2 milk? In a way, it could. Why? Well, because Weetabix is all whole grain breakfast cereal. That's what the American wants, quality wheat and all that. But the presentation is not what they want. So do the Americans want more protein, milk, and milk they can digest? Yes. But could it be that there's something you could do better so people will like it better? So that's what we did for Weetabix. And what we found is there was the shake, and then there was the Go-Gurt that was successful. So what Americans do not care so much about food as much as they do in the UK or in Europe. And therefore, if they could drink their dinner, they would. Because practicality and convenience is very important. This is even further reinforced by the fact that they created in the US. Now it's available everywhere in the world, but it was very much for the US consumer originally. A yogurt that you don't need a spoon and you don't need to eat it inside a little pot, which was the traditional way. So they made it into a tube, and you can eat it with one hand while you do something else. So then we said, okay, so how could we have the shake, plus you eat it with one hand, and the Weetabix? So we created the Go Weeto. And so the Go Weeto suddenly became this tube that would have the breakfast ready inside the tube. And it would be a breakfast in a tube. And in addition, we created the Weeto, which is this little icon, human-looking icon that would be much more friendly, and also to appeal to the kids. So it was the first attempt to start going after the kids as well, for them to, he looks almost like a ginger man or whatever. And that would be how they would communicate, is through this little Wito man that would be go Wito, he'll go anywhere and any which way you go and so forth. So you could play with it. So that was, I think, a very successful way to interpret the original Weetabix, which was for most consumers perceived as boring, into a Go Wito, which is suddenly a much more human, Americanized version of this breakfast cereal. So the way you present this, which is, I believe, the way I did it, is I didn't tell you that why don't we create a tube and put the breakfast cereal inside already with milk and all this, and or plant-based milk and so forth, and put a little gingerbread man looking wheat shape, human-like, and that's an idea. The result was the result of the research. And obviously, I'm not giving you a long presentation on here. I only did this, which is the this plus that equals that. But in your situation, because you'll have 18 minutes to present, is you want many more arguments on why you think the A2 milk should do X, Y, and Z. It's based on your research, it's based on some trial experiments and testing with the customers and all this. Does this sort of inspire you and give you a little bit of a cue on how you should go about your own project? Is it shaping up, or anyone willing to ask a question or comment on this?
I think it really helps just to kind of give a picture about what we're supposed to do, because I feel like a lot of us are probably a little lost, and like, because they're such a large company, trying to figure out like what avenue we should like go for them, if that makes sense. So I think this is really good, like, to see what other companies are doing, so we can like kind of piggyback off of it and like make it our own.
Yes, exactly. So maybe the start is think about problems. What are the problems that you see? So here, you know, what was the problem is people think it's boring. People don't know how to eat it. This product is, you know, another thing that I have to say that was a problem for the Americans is that there was many steps. You know, you had to, because normally what you do is you take a bowl, you put the cereal, you put your milk, you put your spoon, and you eat. Then there was one more step, is you have to smash the biscuit. And when we asked people to do it, so students did it, people said, how long do I smash it? Some people say, gee, I have to smash this thing for 3 minutes. Who has 3 minutes to smash your breakfast cereal? It's like, why do I want breakfast cereal that adds 3 minutes of breakfast cereal smashing? That's the point of breakfast cereal, is to get it over with. So that's what we say, okay, get it over with. You want to get it over with? There, you get it over with. There's nothing. You just open your mouth. Okay, and so it's you find a problem. This is nice, and so I want whole grain, but I want to get it over with. Here is how you get it over with. So the problem, people want to get it over with. The solution is, these are the solution. So another thing you don't want to do, and I'm going to say it now, and unfortunately you will all forget about it, but because is you don't want to give the client one solution. So here I'm only telling you the problem, and here's the solution. I'm giving you one. But when you're giving a solution to a client, you want to give how many? At least 3 solutions. So here's the problem: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's the case study: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16, 17. And based on this, here's an analysis. And based on that, here are the 3 possible results, solutions. There's A, there's B, there's C. We recommend to do B. Why not A and why not C? Because of this, and therefore why B? And then you explain B. So why, when as a consultant, you should show that you have multiple solutions and one is better, because you don't want to give the impression to the client that you had one trick, that you were one trick pony. that you actually thought of multiple solutions, and those three are really good, but there's one that's so much better, and you know you can explain it why that one is better. So it's all about problem, solution, arguments, justification. And that's why you saw me last Tuesday really spend some time. I'm telling you, if you're a consultant, you drive solution with references, with sources, with research. And that's why you want to embrace research, because this is how you're going to increase your index of confidence. Okay. So thank you for your comments. And so that's why you need to. So this is something I want you to look at. It's the buyer decision process, which is people, for the most part, most people don't want to buy new things. I mean, there's a disease which is compulsive buying and all that, where they just have to buy something every day. But normally people, if you keep them away from their credit card, they don't want to buy something every day.
Hey, Professor Vigneron, I got
Yes.
one question.
Yes.
So for the quiz that's on Tuesday,
Yes.
you said you were going to have about an hour and 30 minutes to do it. You said that we will be meeting up in groups, and the first group meets at 10 o'clock. So what happens
Yes.
if somebody doesn't finish early enough on the quiz?
Oh, yeah. There is some people that have extra time, and therefore these people, what they should do is ask their team to record the meeting. So I recommend that every team records the meeting. So I'm going to put you co-host, because you're going to show me things. And the people that are going to be co-host or someone else, they can tell me. Essentially, just need to say, oh, I want to record the meeting. I record the meeting. She is showing the slides. Please make us co-host, both of us. And then they record. The people that, because they have extra time for their quiz, may not be able to be there. So at least they will have the opportunity to review what has been discussed within the 30 minutes of their group. What they can do as well is say, here's a few questions that I would like to be asked. Please designate someone for this person to ask your questions as well. And it is also possible that they won't need do people use the extra time? I give extra time because it's part of the status that some people may get extra time. But almost never people use the extra time. Why is that? Because my quiz are actually normally 60-minute quiz, which are done in class with the pencil. And when it's 60 minutes with no books, no nothing, no internet, no nothing, people usually finish in 50, 55. So now I'm giving you 130. So it's like this is essentially 30 more minutes. So even the people that get extra time, nobody used the all 2 times or the 1.5 times. So most people end early. But I don't recommend it. If you have an hour and 30, or if you have 2 hours or whatever, use as much as you need. There's no rush. But the reality is an hour and a half is comfortable for 99.9% of the people. But if extra time is given to you, you can use it. Did I answer your question, Jack?
Yeah, you answered my question. Just wanted to figure out what you were going to do if one person or 2 people couldn't show up to the presentation.
Yeah. So that's you have to, because otherwise we can't do these things in any other way. So make sure you record. So I think it's a good thing for you to record those meetings, to be honest, because from my experience, having done it many times, because I started doing Zoom in 2015, I was the first person in the College of Business using Zoom by far. I was the one that kept telling everybody in the college to adopt Zoom. And why did I adopt Zoom? Because I used Skype extensively before Zoom. And why do I use all the Skype and all of this Zoom? It's because I use them not in the university. It's not like I teach another university overseas. It's because I do business overseas. I do, I don't know, more than 50%. of my business overseas. And this means of communication is very practical. When I've introduced it so many times before the pandemic, because with the pandemic, everybody had to go on Zoom. The reality is some people hate Zoom. Some people say it's not as good. The reality is there's things that are better and there's things that are not as good. It's a mixture. However, you can't play the victim and say, oh, this could be better by doing X, Y, and Z. The reality is there's some tools that are extremely good, such as the tool of recording the meetings and the tools of being able to see each other and talk. I'm not bothering you with seeing each other for the lectures that I'm doing right now. But when we're going to meet, I don't want to turn off my video for you to see how it feels. If we meet, we got to be meeting. So when we meet on Tuesday, you have to sort of put your video on or tell us the reason why you can't have your video on. And there may be some reasons, and maybe it's better that you don't. But for the most part, people should be able to use Zoom because it's just a very professional way, another professional way of communicating, which is so much better than the phone, for example, because you can show people things. You can show what you're doing. You can, I mean, I have prototypes around me of different products that I work on. I just grab the prototype and I show it. And we look at it. It's very convenient because you can move from one meeting to another very fast. I mean, it's 2022, and so people have to get up to speed, I think. So the buyer decision process is the fact that people eventually don't know that they need it. So it's a job of the marketers to tell people that they need it. People find out that they need it because there's something new and better, and then they find out they need it. Once they recognize that there is a need, which is sometimes not recognized because they don't see why they would want to have it, there's no emergency. If they recognize there's some emergency, they look for a solution. And so the solution may be in what they've been told, and that's sufficient, and they act on that. It may be on what they know, and they try to remember what they know and make their own debates and decision, or they may look for information from other people. Other people may be their friends, family, it may be third-party sources, and so forth. Then they make an evaluation, and then they make purchase decisions. Obviously, there's a big difference between buying a house and buying chewing gum. With chewing gum, you could go through all of the steps with chewing gum, but it's probably more likely that buying a house, you will go in more details, in more length, with more efforts and more time through these steps if you're buying a house versus chewing gum. So this is not the do-it-all for everything. It's just the boilerplate of the basic steps that consumers use when they make decisions. When they've made a purchase, then they think about, you know, was this a good brand? Sometimes they don't think about it intellectually by assessing, okay, now I've got it, let's do a brand assessment and satisfaction assessment. It's just they are satisfied or they are not. And here again, what's very important to understand is there is satisfaction which is based on objective criteria satisfaction, and there is the emotional satisfaction, which is more like, you know, the product may not be exactly what you wanted, you know, in a sense, it's not as reliable as you wish it was, but you do like it, and therefore it is it works. It gives you another thing in compensation. So here's very important is the adapter groups category. So adapter groups category tells you that the product go from a stage where they're known by nobody, and then there's a group that comes the innovator. Then you have the early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. It's important to know this because these go directly in correspondence with this, which is that the fact that product go through different stages, the stage of introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. So introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. The idea is that the products are going to go through these stages. It's very important to relate it with the fact that there are different adopters. Why is this important to relate those two slides? Why should they be connected? why are those 2 slides important for you as a consultant? They're important for you as a consultant because you're working on innovation. So you're launching a new product. So your product is going to be in an introduction stage. In order to explain to the client what to do, you have to identify who are the innovators. Your generation likes to call them the influencers sometimes. So we need to find influencers. So influencers and innovators are not totally the same, but they are sort of, there's a little overlap between the two. So the influencers may not be someone who is buying, it may be someone who just is influencing innovators as well. But it may be someone who is also an innovator and therefore is influencing innovators and early adopters. So that's what's very important, is to find launching a new product. It's, and I don't want to sound bad, this example I've given for 27 years. I didn't give this example I'm going to give you for the past 2 years, but launching a new product, I've said for 27 years, it's like a new virus. And it's a new virus that comes, and a new virus does not needs to find a special group of people that will carry this virus to a wider population. So I don't know if you heard, but there's supposedly a new virus that is really in a very small scale. I mean, there's like 300 or less people in the world affected right now. It's called the monkeypox. So this is a new virus, but people are looking at the monkeypox and looking at who's spreading the monkeypox. The people who are spreading the monkeypox are not universal. They are a specific group of people. First, they tend to be male, more than female. And 2, they tend to be people that have a lot of close sexual relationship. So male who have lots of sexual relationship, tends to be the majority of the people that carry the monkeypox. So bingo, you know the segmentation, it's male versus female. Here is male. They have a certain level of quantity of sexual relationship per month. So there's a number. So you are in the number or you're below the number, therefore you don't belong or you don't. And so these are the 2 segments. So these are the innovators of the monkeypox. And so this is called population ecology. It's a science which is used in biology, it's used in medicine, but it's also used in business because it's how you explain how the diffusion of adoption goes. The diffusion of adoption goes from one group to a bigger group to a bigger group to a bigger group. And this is the diffusion of innovation. And so when you are a consultant recommending the launch of a new product, you will be crazy not to know the concept of diffusion of innovation. So adopter category group is part of diffusion of innovation. I'm not going to spend time on diffusion of innovation, but I think that's the first time since for the 3rd time that we meet, and that would be the first time I tell you, write it down, write diffusion of innovation. And then that's another thing that I recommend that you spend some time by putting it in Google and seeing what you get, seeing definition. If you have only 5 minutes, put it in Wikipedia and it's going to tell you the concept of diffusion of innovation and the importance of the innovators and identifying the innovators and explain you in 5 minutes more of what it is. Then you can do another search following that search and so forth. Learning this diffusion of innovation is going to help you think about the map. It's sort of the map that you want to have in your head as you're thinking about the different elements that you're going to explain the client. So since I've never asked you to write anything down, that's the first time. Maybe I'm hoping you did it. Now, I'm moving into STP. So I did it already on Tuesday, where I was talking about the fact that you have to do S and T and P first, S and then T. You could do it's always S and T. It could not be T and S, because segmentation is about dividing and targeting is about grouping what you've divided. So it's almost like you've done your laundry, and in your laundry, you put all the clothes. And then you do segmentation, which is that you put the socks here, the underwear there, the pants here, the shirts there, and the t-shirts there, and the sweater there, and then the towels in another places. So each one of these is a different category. So segmenting is dividing. And then targeting is maybe the way you organize things. So I don't know, maybe you put the shirt and the t-shirt in the same drawer. So that's your target, the shirt, t-shirt drawer target. And maybe you put your socks and your underwear together, and that's another target. So segmenting is dividing your laundry. Targeting is grouping them based on which file or drawer you're going to put your clothes once they are dry. What's the most difficult thing is identifying the characteristic to divide people. Because as we already had plenty of discussion, is demographic is the most 101 basic way of dividing the customers. And it's done probably the most of the time, the most common one. However, it might not be the most powerful. Maybe the most powerful is psychographics. And even that's what even the clients, it's rare that I have a client that tell that to my students, just so you know, that's super rare. And this is true, psychographics is superior. However, you don't want to do just psychographic and ignore demographics, because you may risk the fact that you're missing on something. So my vision is that S and T is rather complex, and the most complex is S. And when you do segmentation, this is when you need to be creative. People think creative is just having ideas. No, creative is how you divide the people. And that's why I say, because of my bias of luxury goods, is oftentimes I throw luxury goods in there. Every project, oh, here, honey, we're going to do honey. Could there be a luxury honey? Maybe. And anytime I do this, eventually, sometimes it works very well for the company. And I think for the milk, it could be a good one. Targeting of the three, it's the easiest one. It's selecting what the groupings you're going to do. So the selection of the groupings, what you use as characteristics is based on research, not based on, hey guys, should we use demographic? Yeah, let's use it. Hey guys, should we use social class? Oh yeah, let's use it. Hey, no, it's not a random selection. How often time do students use random selection as the criteria of selection? 98% of the time. So 98% of the time, students pick the segmentation characteristics randomly. Yeah. But didn't you tell them that they should come from research? Yes, but they don't. So they think, they don't think that way. They think about what are the characteristics of segmentation. So they go to this and they say, okay, these are the characteristics of segmentation. So we're going to pick randomly income. Okay, let's pick income. Why? Sounds good. That's not the way you do it. What you do is you do some research, and then you find that there is something interesting that tells you that the people that drink the most milk tend to be tend to live in warm states and be active in sports. And you find that they seem to really like sports and be in warm states. You go, oh, that's interesting. That's something I found out. And then you search on that. And then you say, okay, we're going to look at what our competitors do, who they seem to be targeting, what do they say, and one seems to be retargeting the kids, one seems to be targeting the older people, one seems to be targeting the big families with lots of kids, young kids or something. And then is there some disruption in looking at people that live in warm states that practice a lot of sports? And if you find that's a much bigger market, and that's going to put you in a position where you're positioned as much more competitive, then that would be the characteristics that you're going to use. So that's what's very difficult to understand, is that it's from research that you find the answer to the problems, not from a shower that you took that sort of gave you all kinds of good ideas. Now don't underestimate good ideas that you can have in the shower as well. But usually the good ideas that you have in the shower come from the fact that you did a lot of research and eventually you had so much that you're confused. And then at this moment of the shower, you have like a sort of a very calm and sort of lucid few seconds where sort of your brain has sort of synthesized things and went to the essential and tell you, oh, it seems to me maybe the essential is this. And then everything becomes very logical. And then you had the shower moment and it can happen. But you cannot count on shower moments without doing the research, right? So you may think I'm crazy, but that's how it happens very often. Targeting is, I explained that last Tuesday, but it's this idea that you can have one product for one customer or one product for multiple targets. And so these are two good ideas. I think both are acceptable when it comes to A2 milk. I think the product currently is concentrated. I think there's multiple targets that it serves. From the definition that Megan Dish gave us, it seems more that they had a differentiated targeting strategy. It seems, but it's possible that I think there's overlaps with other targets, and therefore I think it could turn to be a concentrated marketing strategy. I think a concentrated marketing strategy for the product as it is good. Maybe for a new product, if you're doing the protein, if you are doing anything specific, maybe having a differentiated would be good. So what is positioning? Out of the three, out of S and T, I said S is harder. And if I had to say S is 10 times harder than T. Out of S, T, P, P is unfortunately the hardest one, but it's harder, not so much because of the decision you make, because most of the decision is already made by doing S and T, what you're going to do at P, but it's the implementation of P that is very difficult. The implementation of S and T is easy. S and T is you decide. We're going to focus on men, and men from this age to that age, and young female from with this income. So then you say concentrated targeting strategy, 2 targets, done. You don't need to implement anything and all that. It's just the research. For positioning, you need to define what your positioning is going to be, but it's even more difficult, which is to implement your position. Is if you say, so here's this multiple positioning for different brands of cars. If you say our positioning is we're going to have a distinctive look and be fun to drive. That's 2 things. Fun to drive, distinctive look. And at that time, you're going to say, okay, so we are that soon, we have a distinctive look and fun to drive. Then you'll say, well, we are perceived as fun to drive, but we could be more perceived as fun to drive. And we, in terms of distinctive look, we are more distinctive than our closer competitor, Toyota, but we're still not as distinctive as some of the brand that we model on. So we need to change that perception of the look. So you change the perception of the look by changing the look, but you also change the perception of the look by changing the message that you have when it comes to talking about the look. Because you can sort of manipulate people eventually to make them think different by sending them enough messages that they start not realizing that they are being sort of manipulated to think a certain way. So positioning, defining the positioning is very, very difficult. Implementing it, which means what do you do in order for the positioning to be perceived that way? Perceptual map is the map as it is perceived by the consumers. So you give brands to the consumers, Volkswagen, Dodge, Ford, Buick, Porsche, BMW, and you give them this map with nothing on it besides just the name of the the orthogonal matrix and the extremes. And then they will place those brands of cars on the orthogonal matrix. That's a perceptual map. Perceptual map is the map as perceived by the consumers. The positioning map is the map as perceived by the company. So the company has a wish, has a hope, and they will take the same map and put themselves where they want to be. So let's say Datsun will put themselves where 5 is. See the number 5. So positioning map, Datsun puts them on the 5. Then they give this map to 1,000 consumers, and then they aggregate all the answers, and then they find that Datsun is actually between 1 and 3 and not close to 5. So that difference between positioning and perceptual gives you the work that you need to do. So we see they need to do a lot of work in terms of Datsun moving to 5 from being perceived as more distinctive looking, but not so much in terms of fun to drive, because they are where they need to be at the amount of fun to drive that they want to be seen. So to conclude, here is a map that you should have either in the tip section or maybe even inside the quiz review, which is sort of giving you the name of what you should be looking at. So on the yellow side, you have the segmentation and the characteristics. So age, benefits, usage, and there's multiple characteristics. And then these are groups grouped together in order to form 4 targets. And then for the 4 targets, you will have their own individual positioning and slogan. So a slogan, a positioning, it's somewhat very similar, because the slogan is the message which is meant to represent the position. Now, I'm going to jump to strategies. But before I do this, any question on segmentation, targeting, and positioning?
Yeah, Professor,
Yes.
I was kind of confused by, so on the previous slide, sorry,
Yeah.
my daughter's in the background making noise, so.
No problem.
So would age, benefits, usage, loyalty, would that be the segmenting, or would it be older men, older women, younger women?
Well, what happened is segmenting is the first stage. So first you think about all the criteria you could use to divide people.
Okay.
Then the targeting is the combination of segment characteristics.
Okay, so you say we're going to look at an older older age group, and then we're going to target older men, older women.
Yeah, who also want the benefit of decay prevention and also are high and heavy users. So if you read what's written under the target, it's just picking. I didn't make the arrows. I made the arrows go all over the place, but you could go from the left side and pull the arrow to go exactly where the component of the target is. So let's say the class, if we do it for the class. So let's say I want to teach this class has 27 students, and let's say it's too big. I should be doing 2 classes of 15 and no more than 15. How do I divide the class? Maybe I say, you know what? Why don't I divide the class between the students that really know how to be a consultant already, I've done it before, and the one that have not done it before. So experience. But then I could say, no, I should do it by age. No, I should do it by GPA. No, I should do it by gender. Right? No, I should do it by length of hair. How long is your hair on your head? And all of this, some make sense, some don't make sense. Why would I use the length of the hair? How would that make a difference for students and how they learn how to be a consultant, right? However, you could say experience is a good characteristic. So then I say I'm going to do 2 targets I'm going to do experience and age, experience and major. And that would be my 2 targets. And I could be using experience both times because each class is going to have a slightly different product. So segmenting, and that's why it's difficult, is because there's 1,000 ways of dividing people. And that's why I told you 99% of the time, the students don't want to really come up with the argument on what characteristics should I pick in order to divide. They just say, oh, what the heck? Let's do demographics. Because it's very easy. Now you could say, you know what? And this I don't know. That's another avenue. I think it was Priscilla using that word before. Or maybe not, sorry. But she says, what you're explaining right now is helping us with the avenue. So, using that word. Another avenue may be making A2 milk for kids. I don't know. I haven't seen the research. It may already be done, but it may be done in a way that is not really good. It seems to me that the biggest consumer of milk are the kids and therefore the family with multiple kids. And in particular, if the kids are less than 10 years old. I may be true, I may be wrong, but I may just throwing something out there. Number 2, it seems to me that I may be wrong, is that there's no A2 milk brands right now that is focused on that specific target, also segment, because it's only one thing, it's a specific age, right? But maybe there is. So then you look, okay, so there are one company that sells to kids that are less than 10 years old, and they really focus on it. The packaging is funny, their message is funny, their website is funny, their Instagram is funny, you know, it's kids friendly, whatever. But then you look at it and you find that they mostly doing kids in general, but no, I'm making it up. But you find that the biggest drinker is not boys under 10, but it's girls under 10. I'm making it up, probably not. I'm just making it up for the sake of the explanation. So then you say, ooh, we're gonna target kids under 10. This is the same as brand X, but girls. By doing this, we're making our market smaller, but our product is going to be more specific to that group. And since that group is a very profitable group, our business is going to be more specific, more focused, more differentiated. And it's more differentiated, not because you have an idea, but because it's based on data. We found that girls more than boys. Here's the data, boom, 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 boom. That's what I'm telling you. This is a good example to teach, but it's probably not the reality. But at least hopefully you understood my idea. So that's why doing STP is in most consulting situation, I would say 50%, just to be safe. In 50% of business consulting situation, you can make a big positive impact by just looking at the basic STP and what the company is doing and what the other company is doing and what the market is doing. By this, looking at these 3 things, an STP, you know, like let's say if you had only 1 week of consulting, you just look at that because there's so many things to look at. So you say, okay, I'm going to look at just what they're doing in segmentation, targeting, positioning, and finding a gap. And the gap that you will find will become the opportunity. So opportunity is, you know, 70% of the milk is consumed by kids less than 10. And of these kids, 65% are girls. That's all you say. And when you do your competitor analysis, you're saying there's 5 brands doing A2 milk, and there's only one that really is targeting kids less than 10, and they have no focus on girls more than boys. It's sort of combined. That gives you the impetus, the reasoning, the logic to say we're going to go after those girls. So Priscilla, now does that become more clear?
Yes, that helped. Thank you.
So fantastic. So now you may be saying, oh, gee, so that's really what it's about in a way. Yeah, 50%. So I just give you a very good tip. If you become a consultant and you want to be disruptive and you have a business and you want to succeed and succeed and succeed and succeed, that's your 50% wrong. So do not ignore what is 50% of the problem solution. That's what it is, what we're looking at right now. Now, let's jump quick then to one thing I wanted to show you. Therefore, we're talking about benchmarking. So second time I'm asking you to write it down, but just make sure that you have access to those 11 key points for benchmarking. It should be in the quiz review. Hopefully it's in the quiz review. I'm going to write it down to check for myself, for you to make sure you have it, because this is very helpful when you're doing your competitor analysis. Is I give a very detailed list of things that you can look at. So the most common thing that students know is to do a SW. So we're doing a SW of A2 Milk company. And then you're going to say there's 5 competitors. So the basic minimum thing you should do is a SW of each one of these competitors. So have that in hand. So if you come and you say, oh, there is a Alexander Farm, and there's the other one that does organic and this and that, then I'm going to say, did you do an SW of each one of these? Because there's not too many. Sometimes the students, I tell them, pick 3. You know, like say, I did BMW at one time with the students. That was in 2000, I think. That's a long time ago. And there are lots of competitors. We're not going to review all of them. It's too much work for the students. So I said, pick 3. The 3 most obvious, most direct competitors. Here for A2 Milk, there's not, well, there's many competitors because there's the A2 competitors, there's the organic milk competitors, and then there is the plant-based competitors, and then there's the mass-produced milk competitors. So when it comes to A2, because there's so few, you want to do all of them. For the organic, you could get by doing just one. If you did more than one, I think that would make sense because these are quite direct competitors still. Then the plant-based, you could say, you know, that's also quite direct competitor in some way, maybe a little bit less than organic, but still. So maybe there you do 1 or 2, you know. And then the mass produce, you could pick 1 maybe that you do a SW, like the biggest one that sells the most milk or something like that. So that's the minimum you want to do. But otherwise, you would want to go through these 11 points of research for the competitors. So you look at their prices, you look at their distribution channels, and the best way to present it, okay, so it's this way. The best way to present your competitive analysis is not to do a SW, but is to give us a chart where we can see and be able to quickly compare our company against the others and what do they do. So wow, in order to get to this, we first need to look at them, each one individually, going through the 11 thing. Like I said, the one that are direct competitors. So not all of them. All of them maybe for the A2 because there's only very few. And then we find what's the most important. And that's where we create the lines. And then we can compare it. And that way we can present it in one slide, all our research. If we had to write about all the research that we did, that would be just in itself 15, 20 pages. That in a PowerPoint for a standard student, that would be 5, 6 slides. But you don't want to do 5 or 6 slides on it. You want to try to get everything to be synthetic and as professional as possible. So that's how it would look like as a single slide. If you look at some of the video that I'm supplying you, the PowerPoint that I'm supplying you, you would see that there's this chart. This chart format is very useful because it quickly gives you an overview for presenting. It's very powerful way to present, and it's also better if you can explain that all of this was based on your research, and the research is also available for the clients to see some of the research. You'll make it available because what you will have in your PowerPoint is at the end of your PowerPoint, let's say you have 20 slides, you're gonna have the 21st slide that's gonna say appendix. And then after this, you're gonna create slides which are just summary of some of the things that you did in terms of research. That way, if the client asks you during the presentation a question, you can go to the appendix, show them the summary slides. Or when you present, you can mention that you have an appendix with some of the analysis inside the appendix at the end, which will also be supplied to the clients for them to look at. Now, basic strategies. So there's the 4 basic strategies which you've had to learn. And like I said, these are the things that you need to know because they are so basic for business students to know. If you're making a new product, selling to the same customers, new product development. If you're making non-new products, selling to the same customer, market penetration. If you're making same product, same product to a different group of customers, market development. And then if you're making it significantly, like very different markets, very different product category, totally different country, whatever you want, the market's super different, totally different age group and all that, then it's diversification. Diversification here is located as the bottom right quadrant for simplification. But the reality is diversification is much more than just a simple new product. So it's like you're making a new toothpaste with a different flavor than the toothpaste you had before, and you're not selling it to old people, but you're selling it to new people. That's not diversification. It's just a new product development and market development. So it's 2 strategies together. To be diversification is you're not making toothpaste anymore, you're making toothbrush, for example. So that is significantly different enough that it's better. Now, the new product development strategy is the one that it's important to know it in details because that's the most common one. And so the idea generation is the first step. Idea generation is you're going to come up with as many ideas based on problem solution as possible. That's what you're doing right now. You are in the stage of idea generation, coming up with as many ideas as possible. The ideas that may come from someone being interviewed, ideas that may come from you just having your own interpretation, ideas may come from secondary data that you have read somewhere, something. So all of these ideas. Okay. ID screening is the next stage. That's what you will be doing, probably you may have started doing ID screening, but I don't think that's a good idea because you should be more open-minded still. You probably start doing ID screening after we meet on Tuesday, based on what I tell you, some ID screening. Probably on Thursday, you start doing more ID screening. And by the beginning of the next week, you will be in the ID screening as much as possible. Could you still be generating IDs? You want to get that done as soon as possible. That's why it's important to be prolific at the beginning. Concept development and testing, that's what you should be doing. You should create, think about the product that you will sell, to who you're going to sell it to, and do some testing, which is sort of still screening the best concepts. You're just trying to see which one makes more sense. Then you'll have the strategy, thinking about what's best. The strategy, obviously, it's most likely to be a new product development strategy plus some of the strategies that will go with it. Then you will think about the cost, the budgets, the feasibility, and all of this. And then if you are A2 Milk, and they pick up on this, they will go through these stages themselves, and then they will start developing some products and then testing the product with the market, and then go into a full launch. Other strategies are overall cost leadership, which is that you want to be the cheapest one. So here we'll be like saying we want to be the cheapest A2 milk available. Why not? It could be. The problem is if you do this, is you're gonna have to work in terms of quantity. And for the A2 milk, the challenge is that trying to make more milk is also goes against the culture of that milk. So it's a little bit tricky, but I can see this being a good strategy eventually, but I don't know that this will be good for the company that invented the category. I think when you are the inventor of the category, you don't want to be the one that has the lowest cost. I think as the inventor of the category, you have the right to be more expensive, and maybe the most expensive. But if you are the most expensive, you need to have a justification as to why you are the most expensive. And since they're not thinking of going organic, and there may not be a real need to go organic, I don't know that being the most expensive is a good idea unless there's a justification. Focus is when you have a specific target that you sell to. Differentiation is when the product is very different in the way it works and the way it's being used and all of this. So it does sort of overlap on the fact that you will have a very focused group of people that would want a differentiated product. So when you do differentiation, is you sort of focus, you sort of really look at the product and, by the way, influence a certain group of customers, versus when you do the focus, is you looking at a certain group of customers, and by the way, you have a product that is very different. It's just a slight emphasis. Focus is customer and product differentiation, versus differentiation is product differentiation, by the way, the customer is also being different. Middle of the road is when your strategy is to not have a very distinct strategy that will consist in going for a specific group or a specific product. You try to sort of go with what's more universal. Other strategy is customer intimacy, is when you have a very club-like relationship with your customers. So customer intimacy, that could be something that could be done by A2 Milk. That's something that it's possible. But the customer intimacy here is definitely not something that they have going on. I think it would be a very good strategy that would go well with the concept of these, cows that are very limited, they are DNA testing. I mean, they are DNA. It's like, how intimate, it's so intimate that you know the DNA of the cow. So you could develop, you can imagine that there will be a way, and I think that's why I said there could be a group that is really focused on the identity of A2 Milk. That takes a group of people that are really good at communication. They're very good at public relations. They really understand the image and branding, and they're interested in branding. They're interested in customer relationship, customer intimacy. If that's something that you like, I think there's a lot to do with A2 Milk, because I think this is a company that's still very much almost at the beginning of their creation. It's been 20 years. For such a disruptive product, I think it's still the very beginning. I think it's definitely a young company in the USA. So I think that's a part. I think they are all interesting. I think that's a very exciting part to be working on and finding some case study in order to build what you would do from a perspective of better communication and better corporate image and culture of the company. Operational excellence, that's sort of already probably their strategy. Operational excellence, the quality of their distribution network is very good. The quality of their relationship with the farmers is very good. So they have a lot of operational excellence, and that's probably one of their strategies that they currently do. So they have that. Product leadership, that's number one. They're the inventor of the category, so that's what they did. And maybe that's why you want, and I mentioned maybe there could be two groups that will work on the next protein product, which will be, again, taking product leadership as the strategy. So product leadership, that's sort of the name. So can you have multiple strategies at the same time? Yes, you could have product leadership and new product development and market development or something like this. And the justification is that you're making whatever blah, blah, blah protein. That could be. The last one is market leader. So you want to be the most sold. Market challenger is you want to be just behind the market leader as the second largest share. Market follower is you essentially just learning from the leader and the challenger. And market nicher is the same as focus. is you know that you can't be everything to everyone, and therefore you're going to take a very small group of customers in order to be highly differentiated. So differentiation, focus equals niche. So you have all of these different strategies because I want you to see that there's more than the basic, you know, I feel like saying high school 101 strategies that everybody should know when they graduate from a business school, because this is like a doctor knowing how to take a patient pulse. If a doctor doesn't know to take a patient pulse, maybe better to run the opposite direction. So then I want to show you this because you want to be able to see that. This is something that I explain when I try to explain the students the difference between high level and low level thinking, and therefore high level is strategy versus low level is tactical. So when you talk about launching a campaign, you have to think about marketing and the 4 Ps. And so the 4 Ps tends to be what's referred as the lower level. And explaining what you're going to do with the 4 Ps in details, that's the tactics in the low level. So first you want to think about strategies, and then you want to go into the details. When you go into the details, and I made this map, and it's inside Canvas as well, and this slide is you can actually see all the name of the strategy that are available there. So just to come up with the top one, it's the corporate strategies, and I just finished presenting like 15 of them. And here you have just four corporate strategies, plus you put cost leadership and niche focus differentiation and market leadership and so forth. They could all be there. That's the corporate strategies. And then you have the strategies at the level of the 4 Ps. So they call the sub-strategies. So quality, branding, service, packaging, scheming, penetration, captive, bundling, pricing. So these are different strategies within each one of the Ps. They are still strategies. And after this, you have the tactics. Is what you do in order to do penetration pricing, what you do in order to do direct distribution, what you do in order to do sales promotion. Okay, so that's what you want to focus on. Now, what I want to say is I want to go quickly in terms of costs. The cost is you have fixed cost and variable cost. That makes both costs. The fixed costs don't change. The more you produce, the fixed cost stays the same to some extent. So you make 1,000 bottles of milk, you have 10 employees. Now you want to make 2,000 bottles of milk, you still can do it with the 10 employees. Maybe there's a threshold where you need more employees, but that's your, sorry, not the employees, it's the building. So you have one building, you make 1,000 bottles, you want to make 2,000 bottles, you still have this building, you still have those machines. Now you want to make more, you eventually have to grow your supply. The more milk you make, the more milk you have to get from the farms. So the variable cost will vary. And so the more you make, the more you have this variation. But at one point of production, one quantity of production, you will have your total cost. So that's the minimum. So the minimum you can sell something is the cost. The maximum you can sell something is what you can sell it for. So first rule of this maximum is cost plus margin. So you know it costs you $1 to make it. Then you decide to do a 50%. So you sell it $1.50. Your margin is 100%. You sell it $2. Okay. This method is good because it's simple. You just need to know mathematics and you can do it. However, it ignores what you can sell it for. So what you can sell it for may be competition-based pricing. You can't be selling it the price you want to sell it. Is how much are your competitors selling it for? And therefore, you could say they sell it for $185, so we sell it for $185 or $186 or $184, depending on the strategy of our image. Competition-based pricing, you just match. Now, the break-even pricing is looking at profit that you want to make. And therefore, you're going to use a chart in order to chart when are you going to get the profit. So if you sell a SAR, if you make 50 cents by selling it $1.50, when are you going to make $1 million? And therefore, you're going to find that you're going to have to sell 2 million of this bottle in order to make $1 million, because you're making 50 cents per bottle. You may find that $1.50 selling 2 million bottles is not reasonable based on the market that you have, but you still want to make $1 million. So then you have to increase the price. And by increasing the price, you will reduce the number of bottles. So you're going to play like a cursor, several cursors that are going to move in order to reduce the product you're going to sell, increase the profit, or decrease the profit, or increase the number of products you sell in order to reach a profit, a revenue and a profit. And so that's what you do with the break even, is you're looking at a certain profit. And the reason you look at a certain profit the reason for break even is because your business has investors. And therefore the investors don't care that you sell milk or chewing gum. They're only interested in making at least 25%. So you're going to have to find a way of making 25% in order to attract people that want to make 25%. The last one is the value-based pricing, which is the more market-oriented, if you want, because it's looking at what the consumers are willing to spend. So there's problem solution. How big is the problem? How many people are solving the problem? And how are you solving the problem? So we're solving the problem where nobody else solved the problem. You can sell it almost to the price that you want. We're solving a problem in a way that people are going to gain a lot. Then you offer a great value. The problem with value-based is it's a little bit too positive thinking. Is you see as a business that you're solving a huge problem, so you're going to make a huge profit. But you also need to be reasonable. You also look at what are the prices of your competitors. So what's the price at the end? It's the combination of all of these methods. Now there's some pricing strategies, and there's two that I want to talk about. Market skimming, which is selling the price as high as you can, and market penetration pricing, which is selling the price as low as you can. Selling it as high as you can will make more profits, but you will probably sell less products. And you can only really do it if you have a real value and benefits for the consumers, and your product is really, really new and much better. The problem is because you sell it at such a high price, your competitors that will follow will sell it for less than you, and they will gain market share, and you'll have to reduce your price. However, reducing your price when you had it high when you started with, that's fine. That's the problem with market penetration pricing, is if you start at low price, and if you have competitors that comes after, which is 99.9% chance sure that someone comes after to compete against you, then you're going to have very little space to reduce the price. However, by starting with penetration pricing, you will have more chance to get a bigger chunk of the market from the get-go than starting with market skimming. So both are good, but you have to know very well the condition of the market, and you have to sort of have anticipated what's going to happen when you launch this product. Then there's other strategies that are product line pricing, optional, captive, that are sort of very easy. The different discounts on allowances, the fact that you give different prices to people depending on who they are. You know, it's like a student discount, senior discount, military discounts, and all this. And discounts, you know, if you buy on Tuesday versus on Monday, if you buy at the airport versus if you rent a car, you pay in advance versus you pay when you pick up the car. So all of these are different methods, and they're very important. Now, distribution is something that is expensive and that you share with the distributors. So the distribution main strategy is push and pull. So the idea is that pulling is bringing the customers towards you. So the main way to do that is through communication, advertising, social media. Push strategy is you not incentivizing, like motivating the consumer to buy your product by making them want your product, is you giving an incentive to the distribution network. So you're saying to the distribution network, my product, I sell it to you 50% off. So the distribution network takes more of your product. And then when people go to the store or go on Amazon, they find it on the front page, not because it's a better product, but because the person distributing it has got such a discount that they have an incentive themselves to be proposing it to the consumers. The best thing is to do both, is to advertise to the consumer, so the consumer is looking for the product, but it's also to incentivize the distribution network, so the distribution network is putting it into the people's face. So if they put it into people's face, they see it, consumers see it and say, oh, I know this because I've been communicated on it, and then they buy the product. The issue with distribution is there's a bargaining power going on between the manufacturer and the distributor. Unfortunately, for many years now, the distributors are becoming the most powerful. Even though they're not doing much, they're only servicing the product. So what's more important, someone that makes a pen or someone that makes the pen available to you? The one that makes the pen, because they do something. Unfortunately, in the USA, the world has changed so much that nobody makes anything anymore here, and most of our society is becoming a service. And that's why if you look at the 20 richest people in America, most of them are in services and not in manufacturing, because it's been manufactured overseas, and for tax purposes, we don't know how much money they make, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So distributors have the location, distributors have the sales volume, and how much they buy from the manufacturer. That's a big incentive for the manufacturer. And they also have their brand and consumer loyalty. The manufacturer, what their difference is, they have all of this plus one thing, which is that they control the quality. The distributor does not control the quality. However, the distributors sometimes sell their own brand. So it's like a Costco brand, you know, Kirkland soap or whatever, shampoo, which they control the quality, but to some extent, because it's a private label, which means it's not made by Costco, it's made by someone else. Now, Costco, what is Costco? Costco is a wholesaler originally, which means that people buy in large quantities to not normally to resell. But at the same time, it has a membership for people to buy and to use themselves. So Costco is a retailer and a wholesaler. However, normally retailing are just companies that sell for products that are going to be used directly by the person buying it. What's important between this is that the world of distribution is sort of in chaos, because manufacturers, knowing that they are losing the power with distributors, have eventually tried to control the distribution network. But the distributors, in order to fight against those manufacturers, what have they done is try to control also the wholesaling. So retailers are becoming wholesalers, and they are at the same time becoming sort of manufacturers because they're getting private label made for them. So wholesalers, what do they do? So for A2Milk, I don't know how they work. Normally, the way you work is you're a manufacturer, and then you find distributors that are so distributors like wholesalers that will represent your brand to the retailers. But in their situation, it is possible that they sell directly to large retailers, and therefore the retailers buy the product from them. The only thing is retailers oftentimes don't like, 99% of the time, don't like to talk to individual brands, like one brand of soap, one brand of shampoo, one brand of toothpaste. What they like is to talk to one brand that does soap, toothpaste, and shampoo. And therefore, by doing this, in that category, they have like 10 suppliers. And these 10 suppliers equals 1,000 brands because they have multiple brands. So why do they like that better? Because they know that these are the ones that do the most pull strategy. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because those big brands work through the retailer sell a lot of them, then they have a lot of money, then they advertise a lot, which makes the retailer sells even more, which makes them buy more from those big retail manufacturers, which they can advertise more, that they sell more, and that's what happens. So it's difficult for a smaller brand that has one product like A2 milk to get into that process, because it's annoying for them to have to deal with one more supplier. It's just more work. And so normally what this one supplier does in order to fight that, they join a wholesaler who is going to be a company that's sort of going to work like a big manufacturer, like a Procter & Gamble, if you want, or Johnson & Johnson, which will have many different type of milk, many different type of butter, many different type of eggs. And so then they're going to do all of these dairy and farming products. They're going to own none of the brand. They may have exclusivity to distribute them within a territory for a specific amount of time. And when they go speak to a retailer, it's therefore this wholesaler that comes with also 100 type of different products. And the retailer doesn't mind that, because then they get access to so many products and it saves. What they don't like is the fact that they know that between the manufacturer and them, there's an intermediary, and therefore there's an extra margin. So sometimes that's what they do, is they say, we don't want the extra margin of the wholesaler. So what we're going to do is get ourselves to create a branch of our company, like a hub, which is going to be a hub that's going to act as a wholesaler. They're not going to be buying to put in the retail, but they're going to be buying to put into the hub. And then the hub is going to dispatch to our individual stores. And that way, they can grandfather or remove, it's called disintermediaries, remove an intermediary and get the margin of the intermediaries. So, you know, we could have, I didn't think about asking them, but I could send them an email and see if they're willing to tell us how do they work this. Obviously, what's interesting in here is the fact that they have no farm themselves. So they are essentially, when you think about it, like a trademark owner. They are just a formula, a process, a trademark owner. They don't really own the product. They own just the trademark. And so therefore they have people probably in charge of logistics, manufacturing, logistics.
Hey, Professor?
Yes.
I got a question.
Yes.
So when we talk about vertical integration and potentially owning a farm themselves, should that be mentioned in the strategy? Should it be mentioned in the critical success factors? Where should I talk about that? How should I mention it?
So you see, to me, the fact of owning a farm, it's unfortunately, it's an ID, and it's a tactical ID. So what I would say is the group that's thinking of doing the farm essentially is the group that should be doing the corporate image, the culture of the company. So it's a bigger idea. So how do you do the culture of the company? You do, so that's the idea. Changing the no, not changing. Maybe it's not changing. It's more like a fixing. Sorry, I can't find the word. Let's use fixing. Fixing the corporate image. Then under that, you have a bunch of pillars of that. And I think one is corporate image, another one is culture, another one is branding, another one is communication. Then under communication, then I will put the farm, because the farm feeds in the fact that you're going to communicate about the farm, feeds in the fact that that's going to be your corporate image, feeds in the fact that that's going to be your brand, which means that, you know, I think eventually we need to see something that connects. You know, there's the A2 logo. Maybe you keep the color, you keep all of this. Maybe you make the product look even more modern. And that's what I'm saying right now. Should the packaging be A2 blue and white, and it looks almost like a clinical product, like a medical product? Or should it look much more high-tech than that? The problem I have is when you do the targeting, now that I'm thinking of it, is could this be targeted at two groups? One target is the people that are looking for the fact that it's the original traditional milk, A2 milk from the cows that are great, but it's also the high-tech DNA people looking for science and so forth. Concentrated strategy is these two people are in there. You follow me, Jack?
Yeah, that makes sense. So essentially, you want to like maybe do like a concentrated strategy that targets like I guess scientists and people who are more, I guess, scientifically inquired.
Well, yeah, that's what you're gonna do. You know, there's some people. I mean, even I just talk about my friends and neighbors. Some people, they get the new gadget right away. You know, there's the new iPhone. Boom, they're the first one to get it. You ask them, is it better? They don't know. It's new. It's a new one. It's better. And there's some people that say, "I wait. I'm gonna wait." You know, and so this milk to me has so much technology inside that you could say that there's a group of people that would love it just for the fact that it sounds like it's more modern. You know, it's a little bit like the people that bought the sugar. It's like, do you want sugar or do you want sucrate? And you go, oh, what's sucrate? Oh, sucrate is a new enzyme of this and this and this and that, and it's super good because it's low calorie. I'll take sucrate. It's like, yeah, but what the heck is sucrate? Maybe you get a cancer from this. Yeah, but it's new. It's technology. And so they could, you know, part of me, it's like, I like A2 milk and all that, but then the fact that they're doing all of this DNA selection of the cows and all this, I'm sort of worried that it goes out of hand as well. That they could try to finesse in a way of making things sound so high tech that this is better. You know, like a virtual cow. Oh, this is milk from a metaverse cow. It's really good. It's metaverse cow. Metaverse cow milk. You know, and then some people are going to go, oh, metaverse cow milk. That's the one I want. Why? It's metaverse. You even know what's metaverse? Yeah, it's this cool thing. So there's some people that go for it. That you're going to have to explain this better than I do, but eventually that's hopefully I'm sort of being understood. It's this go for high tech group of people. And in the class right now, there are some because they are more and more common. So they will recognize themselves and say, I see what he's talking about. And then there's some people that are will more want to see, you know, and that's what she was saying when we interviewed her. She says there's some smarty pants that are calling for eggs, you know, grass-fed cows and all this, grass-fed. And she says there's no regulation on it. But some people hear grass-fed, suddenly it's got to be better. That's not for the high-tech people. That's for the people that look for more tradition and all this. So I see these two groups, and I see A2 milk right now. I can't tell which one do they belong. The question is, should they belong to one? Should they belong to both? And if they belong to both, I cannot tell in their corporate image and their culture, how do they embrace both in an optimal way? Right now, I can see that they're sort of talking to both, but it's not very clear. And that's where I think there's a huge contribution that one group could do, but it requires people that like this concept of public relations, that likes this concept of branding. And that's why, Jack, hopefully I didn't lose you, but that's why I believe that the farm goes into, it belongs in that project.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I understand what you're saying. You want me to say whether or not it's more traditional, whether or not it's more tailored towards high-tech people, advertise the fact that it's, you know, a new kind of milk, it's A2, it's DNA, it's more exactly tailored to like scientifically inquired people. You want to try to find a way to branch out between those two different categories and find a way to sell it.
Yes, exactly. And so that's where the farm would come. For example, the group that's going to do the luxury milk, I don't know that the farm be as important. Or the people that are going to do, I don't know, a protein shake or a fitness bar, breakfast bar or whatever, the farm may not make too much sense either, because the farm, you're gonna have to justify it and the fact that it's a pillar, it's important, because as you can tell, they don't have it, and she had the experience in a previous company that they had it and they got rid of it. So you have a double obstacle there. She doesn't think, and her experience was that it was better not to have it. But that doesn't mean they should not have it. Am I 100% convinced they should have it? No. I'm 55% convinced they should have it, from what I know. And if I was to bet on it, I would, if I had to bet on it, I would say it would be better that they don't have it, because if they don't believe in it, it's better if they don't have it. If they believe in it, maybe it's better they have it. And so the question is that your group's gonna have to come up with the argument that push us towards it makes sense. Thank you, Jack, for your input.
Professor, I have a question.
Yes.
I think for their businesses that they do outside the US, I think they have kind of the same platform. I think that's why they lean on not having a farm, because it's worked for them in other countries.
So you mean they have a farm overseas?
No, they don't. I think that's why they're using that system that they have overseas to.
Yeah.
I think they think that's the reason why it would work here, because it worked for them over there. I think that's your thinking.
Yeah, yes. So, well, the thing is, okay, it's can I say, it's almost like saying, you know what, I run an airline company and we're using a lot of gas to fly our planes. We are Delta Airlines, we're running, and I've decided to buy a petroleum company. That way I'll have a petroleum and an airline company, and I can use my own petrol. I think the problem is sometimes you expand yourself so much that it's very, very hard to keep both at the same time. Very hard to keep both. This happened to me. I eventually thought it was good to have a champagne company as well. So I started a champagne company and all this. Wow, it's so different. And I didn't realize how different it was. Different customers, different time, different season, different issues. The champagne has to be cold, very cold. The cognac has to be room temperature. Just that was difficult. Just doing the tastings. Like I go to a meeting and I'm supposed to give people to taste my champagne and my cognac at the same time. Very difficult, because one had to be super cold, one had to be super room temperature. And when you open a bottle of champagne, you have to drink it within the next 5 minutes. A bottle of cognac can take you a year to drink. So just the management of the samples was just a nightmare. Yeah, and the glasses are different. So suddenly you had to carry more glasses. All of this looks like a small details, but there was so many little details that were different, that organizing all of these different details was very difficult. What I'm saying is, like, cognac and whiskey is very different, but I could sell a whiskey because you go in the same bag, it would be the same glasses, it would be the same time, the same everything. So you just pull one, you pull the other, you store them in the same room, you put them in the same container. See, like I have a container right now coming, and inside there's wine. So we had to rent a refrigerated container. It's 2 times more expensive, refrigerated container. My cognac is 3 times more expensive than the wine. So I'm going to spend more money because of the wine going in a different container. There's lots of things like this that you don't see at the beginning. So for them to have a farm, you have to think it's a can of problems, a big can of problems that they do not have to deal with right now. Which means that if they had to have this farm, suddenly maybe they would have to add 10 more employees. And adding 10 more employees, they may say that they make no profit. Why would they lose profit just for the heck of saying we have a farm, it's cute? So that's why you have to really think about it. Is is not just an ID. It's you have to really argue and justify it. And if they don't do it overseas, you're right, it creates even more reasoning for why would we do it in the US? It's working out, you know. But I think they're missing out because I think, you know, to me, the big picture is they will compete very soon against Danone and Nestle and all those people. Very soon they will compete. And the minute they compete against them, they either need to grow big fast, so that way they big to compete against big, or they need to become more of a specialty and build the authenticity that Nestle will never be able to build. So people say, yeah, I get Nestle A2 milk, or I get the real A2 milk. Why is it real? Well, they created it, they have this image and reputation. So I'm only looking at the future. Again, big picture. And so it's an expense today, but if we don't do it, we'll pay dearly in the future. I don't know if I make myself. We will have all of this discussion again. I just want to take 1 minute to finish. And the last two slides that I have are talking about communication and the fact that when you do communication, you have 4 objectives: is to inform, persuade, compare, and remind. And communication is not just about selling. Communication is sometimes to get the consumers to know about the product, and sometimes to remind them because they've been buying in the past, and sometimes to make a comparison. So I could imagine that there should be comparative advertising when it comes to A2 milk, to be honest, because they are being compared. People in their head are comparing it to almond milk, and it's not the same. And they're comparing it to normal milk, and it's not the same. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're doing comparative advertising and I didn't see it. And maybe it's just me. But if they are, maybe they should not do comparative advertising, or maybe they should. And that's something for you to find out. And that's why I say there's one group that does a lot of work in terms of communication, and that could be the whole thing. All we are looking at the communication, and you know, because I read your SWOT, and many people in the SWOT put as a weakness, which is people don't know about them. And I'm not saying that they're going to do Super Bowl ads because that's how you get everybody in to know about you. But I think they need to be some clever way of being known. They need to do something to improve how much is known. And remember, we talked about this last Tuesday as well. It doesn't have, they don't really need maybe to buy a farm and the whole shambang. Maybe what they need to do is work with some of the farmers in order to have access to the facility, in order to build that authenticity within, as part of the, you know, we buy your milk and we have this much access to the location in order to do what we need to do in order to build that reputation. Maybe that's cheaper, and maybe that's the first step as well. Maybe there's steps to get to the farm before you have your own farm. Bye, everybody.